All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Municipal Coventry Municipal Fire Commission to order at 6:01 PM. Roll call. Chief Heiss here. Solicitor Angel's here. Mr. Savetti, Manager Perillo, Jillian Weinmiller, Peter Rondo, Russell McGilvery, Brian Teston, Captain McAloon, Lieutenant McCann, Councilmember LeBlanc, and I am here. All right. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. In the event of an emergency, those present this evening can exit outdoors labeled number 1 or 2 in the back to front lawn or back parking lot of Town Hall. We have one set of meeting minutes this evening, January 9th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion?
I have a friendly edit.
Yep.
Row 90 should just be finance director, shouldn't be finance air director.
Okay. On that same page, line 68, President Lima suggests with an S. Line 78, Angel only has one L. It should have 2. Any other edits from members of the commission? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Public comment on docketed items. At this time, we'll now accept public comment on docketed items only, those on our agenda this evening. Please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Anyone on Zoom? Please raise your hand to be let in. Public comment on docketed items only. Going once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. We'll now move to business carried over from previous agenda. We have 2 this evening, results of the inventory of district-owned property carried over from the January 9th meeting, and results of the inventory of district-owned equipment and apparatus carried over from the January 9th, 2025 meeting. So you were all given a copy digitally. Dan, thank you for whichever staff member took all that information and put it in a central place. I think that's going to be helpful. We certainly appreciate that. I also prepared some kind of sample questions to guide us through, because getting this packet of information, it's like, all right, now what? So I'd like to try something and see how we do. I'd like to suspend the rules so we can have kind of free-flowing discussion here. Just make sure that when you do speak, please use the microphone, so when we're putting together actual minutes, the clerk can hear. So just make sure that you do that. So at this time, I'll take a motion to suspend the rules. Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right. So I guess first, before we run through the questions, any initial comments that you think we should consider as we move through this? Yep.
So I thought that the third-party contracts was due in a March meeting, so I'll have our, from Western, I'll have those for then. I know that everybody else gave theirs, so just so you guys are aware of that.
Anything else, initial comments before we dive in? All right. So in terms of apparatus and equipment, and just for helpful for those of us in the room who aren't in this day to day, talk to us about where there may be duplication of equipment, or where you see it's helpful to have multiple in the event of trying to merge So this is really for the professionals in the room or board members as well.
I can start with Anthony.
Yeah, okay, make sure your mic's on.
As an example, if you look at Anthony District on this, the top of this schedule here,
Mhm.
we have ladder one, we have engine one, we have rescue one. Rescue one's brand new this past year. We have now because we have a new rescue, we have a backup rescue. So to your point on this list here, we have a backup rescue. That's a good thing. From a town perspective, that someone has a backup rescue. In the event that another district, their rescue goes down, we have one in town. We don't have to borrow from West Warwick, East Greenwich, wherever. But there's probably a limit to the number of backups you need, right? In terms of rescues. We have a new engine coming later this year, probably Q3. So when that arrives and gets placed in service, our current engine one, which is from 2001 and is quite tired, will be no longer needed. I won't keep that as a backup engine. I'd look to sell that. Regarding ladders, the question is really how many ladders do we need in town? I've gone back and forth with whether Anthony should sell its ladder. So these are things that we consider, but we should be looking at it from the town, as a whole.
Other comments?
So you'll see that Central Coventry's got the same thing, is that, we have a reserve rescue. And I agree with Brian, we have to look at it for the, 64 square miles, not just our fire district. Generally, what you try to do professionally is you have a 50% kind of fold over. So if you've got 4 rescues in town, you try to keep 1 or 2 in reserve. Same thing with engines. If you have 4 or 5 engines, you try to keep half that number in reserve. As far as ladders, Hopkins Hill has one, Anthony has one, but as far as full-time staffed vehicles, every station in here except my Station 7, I'm sorry, except our stations in Central, cross-man vehicles. So at any one, he has 3 vehicles in the station, but it's only one of them's available at a time, and it's a roll of the dice as to which one you're gonna get. So as the town plans on something, I would start planning on dedicated vehicles, so that way you're gonna get a ladder truck on the calls that are supposed to get ladder trucks. Right now, if Rescue 6 happens to be out, and Engine 1 happens to be out, there is no ladder truck in town, and you're waiting for another municipality to send one if theirs is available.
So you're saying not backup in the sense of if a vehicle breaks down, but backup if the other one's out on the call, the primary is out on a call?
No, I mean,
What we're
only if they're
talking about
broken.
is 2 different things, right?
okay.
There's inventory or assets that we have that we own and could be any number of things, primary backup. Then there's spontaneous, simultaneously active apparatus available to be in service at any moment in time.
For
right?
use by another
So
part of the platoon?
that's more of a manpower
Oh, okay.
conversation, right? What he's mentioning is if we're cross-manning Anthony Station, we have 3 people on staff on a shift at any point in time. They can only take 1 vehicle out at a time. So I have a ladder, an engine, and a rescue, but only one of those is going to be in service at one point in time. What you have to decide is, for the town as a whole, how many rescues, plus how many engines, plus how many ladders do you need in service at the same time, simultaneously? What's that number to cover all the calls, all the residents, right? So it's, I started working on data-driven staffing model, right? Look at the population, look at the number of calls year to year historically. So then you can look at calls per resident, right? Then you look at, well, how many apparatus did we have based on staffing in service simultaneously at any point in time, right, in each of those years? right now, we have less than we've ever had before because this is after Station 7 took one out of service. So at a minimum, you want to look at the number of calls and calls per apparatus and service and say, is that appropriate or not? And then you want to get to the number that is appropriate and then staff your shifts according to the number of apparatus you need.
How far apart is the number of apparatus needed, whether it's reserve and active, when you look between the crossman and non-crossman models? Is it really that different?
Yes.
Like how different? Is that,
And
is
that's gonna
crossman requiring adding vehicles more than we have here?
No.
No, it's
need
not about.
more.
so
It's about staffing.
It's not yet.
It's
You've
more
got
about
plenty of
staffing.
trucks. We need the people.
We have, yeah, right. We have more apparatus in town than we can staff.
Oh, I got you.
right?
Okay.
We have plenty of it. But we don't have enough staff. We have to find the balance between what do you need to have on the road, right? We have more than we need in terms of trucks, but not as much as what we need in terms of people.
Okay.
So for the Anthony Fire District, to use them as an example, they have those 3 trucks, an engine, ladder, and a rescue. To staff it as similar as the town of West Warwick, he would have to double his staffing. He has 3 people on duty, he needs 6.
Yeah.
2 for the engine, 2 for the ladder, 2 for the rescue, and now he's at 3.
Mhm.
So if you start looking at, other than the central Coventry, because every truck that we have has got our 2 people on it,
Yeah,
you'd have to, add people to stop the cross manning.
gotcha. Just make sure your mic's on.
Kinsale's in the exact same boat. We have a ladder truck, an engine, and a rescue, and also the decon unit, and we only have 2 people per shift.
Okay.
Western also, and to be fair too, if our rescue's out, if we get a fire call, it's 20 minutes too. So just keep that in mind, time-wise as well.
Okay. So basically, we've quickly arrived at we really should just keep the vehicles that we have, and that there isn't any place where we're gonna be selling anything off or saying that anything's too old and obsolete, essentially.
No, but I don't know if you'd have to move stuff around. I mean, I haven't really, was there a set of jaws in Western Coventry? Do we have one on the eastern side that you might be able to move around? There are some little things you might move
Yep.
a boat around or something, but as far as trucks, you've got them where you're stuck. And as Brian said, we've got all the trucks, we got, plenty of spaces. We don't have as many stations as we did either.
Mhm.
Without the Harris Station, the Hill Farm Station, the Washington Station, that merged in 2006, and the subsequent sale of those buildings, not only do we not have the people, we don't have the locations we had before.
All right. Anything else on the apparatus and equipment? It sounds like it is what it is. Okay. Service and vendor agreements. Where do we see any overlap there? Or is it something where in the event of a merger, there's singular contracts instead? Are you all working with the same vendors essentially, or no?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. I would imagine that the town would have to rebid them to be now town contracts or town vendors. That includes ambulance billing, truck maintenance, whether that goes to the town or we still sub it out. Purchasing fuel, if we're gonna get it at the town site, or we still purchase it out on the economy as we do now. There's gonna be, some things in there that would be great to blend together, and some of them will have to be changed now that we're part of the town.
Why, bear with me, please. Why do the types of contracts vary so much district to district? Like, I guess in my mind, I would imagine you need a lot of the same services, but I'm looking and there's definitely, I see some differences, or some have some and some don't. Like Anthony, or unless it's on the page previous, no, not really. Anthony seems to have a significantly less maintenance agreements or contracts compared to Central, Hopkins Hill. Obviously, Westerns is,
I mean, it depends what you have at your station. So you can look at like my list and Central's list, and you can see that, you know, they both ambulances have a striker, which is the you know, the pull-out bed,
Mhm.
stretcher. We both use striker, so we both have a maintenance agreement that comes along with that. We both have a Plymovent system, so we both have, you know, but if you don't have a Plymovent system in your station, then obviously you're not going to have an agreement for it.
okay. Can we talk about what the list at a high level is comprehensively of maintenance agreements that need to be considered for like,
Yeah, there'll be radio service, so all the portable radios is one. IT, obviously that's gonna come back to the town.
That would
right?
just be the town.
Right.
yep,
Yeah, that's an area where you have overlap
save
for
something.
sure. I would immediately get rid of my IT folks.
Just to comment on that, though, we have to make sure that Cody and IT team has actual capacity to be able to service all that, because I'm assuming you each have your own IT, either outsourced or you have your own IT people.
No, it's not full-time folks, no. It's an
Yeah, you
outsourced
use
service
Packet Logic.
or a
Right.
cloud service.
I'm just saying the service agreement is actually the people, the resource. I'm not thinking that Cody probably has capacity to just easily put this under his fold, but that's just me.
I mean, he's at the brink already of needing help anyway without them, so radio, IT,
Right, and then the equipment, so the stretcher service, the monitors, right now, the Anthony Fire District and Central, we use two different systems. They use Zoll, we use LifePak or Medtronics. So, I imagine in a merge, someone would give and we'd share one service or have one type of monitor. Air packs, hose testing, fire and pump testing, and ladder testing.
hose
Things are done
testing.
Annually, so
pump
that stuff would have to
testing.
come into ambulance billing would be a big one for the town, especially for revenue recovery.
Yeah, some of those things you might expect to have a benefit when when you're pooling volumes across 4 districts together and now negotiating a rate with a rescue recovery billing company or other types of services.
I had a question on that. So having in the middle of a project right now, looking at other collection activities, okay, which a lot of times ends up and ripens into lawsuits. What do you use now by district? Is it a collection agency? Do you use a law firm that provides collection services from soup to nuts? What do you do if they need to go into suit? How does that work?
Are you, like ambulance billing, you mean? So ambulance billing is done, by a third party. We use New England Ambulance Billing for, the Central Coventry Fire District. Brian, I'm not sure who you guys use.
Used to be a Dawson Group, now it's Coronas, I think it's called.
And I think
It's a company.
it's a company. They collect all the data
very
information, do all the
complicated-
billing.
We know.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the actual collection. So you've got somebody who hasn't paid their bill,
Yep.
what collection services?
For us, Coronas is part, they help us with that. It's part of our contract.
What is part of what needs to be considered? Criticizing the contract. This is consumer collections. It's got to be totally compliant with CFPB regulations. I know that the president wants to demolish the agency, but there are federal regulations on collection practices. So we want to make sure that that's right. But now I'm concerned about when we actually go, we've got to sue somebody. What are we doing for that? Is it a regular course of business to sue folks?
No. So the regular course of business for the Central Coventry Fire District is if you're a Coventry resident, all we want is whatever your health care will cover. We don't bill after that.
Same for
You
Anthony.
get a bill, right, we tell them, just throw it in the trash. No balance bill. through a auto, like a car crash or something?
That would be done through lawyers, basically the personal lawyer in the Dawson Group. Well, we use the Dawson Group, what, they're new with the name of it now.
Well, we have fleet maintenance. Yep.
Station maintenance, fire
Well,
alarm, sprinkler.
Yeah, fire alarm systems would have to be in there. But you have probably a contract for the town to do that now. You just add buildings onto that contract. Encore.
So,
Then there's also the in-building stuff, HVAC, heating, ventilation, we need oil delivered, that kind of stuff, fuel. Right, so whoever uses that, everybody, I'm sure, has got their own company that they use.
so, my next question would be, how do we want to, and maybe it's a question for Bob or Jamie, what's the best way to take this list and give some cost windows to these so we can get a ballpark of, say these were all put together, what are we looking at for maintenance costs? So like, obviously radio, that's a contract, but IT, you'd put, here's what that extra staff person's gonna look like in terms of the whole package for another full-time person. And then right on down the list. So, I'm all ears, but I think that's a next step here is getting some ballparks on these.
We would probably need to have some examples of what they're paying now for these services. We don't have any
It's all here.
It's all,
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's in the.
all in there.
Oh, yeah,
The maintenance, except
Those-
for, Jillian's gonna send Westerns, but maybe it's but obviously the guess is if it's all one contract, it would be negotiated down a bit. But if we can get some averages based on we've been given, I think that's helpful to have for the next meeting, so we can get an idea of what maintenance is gonna look like, maintenance contracts.
Then there's still the building maintenance themselves, who's plowing the lots, who's, doing any repairs, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, that kind of stuff.
And then I'm presuming each district also has a solicitor contract, and I don't see those listed here
Yes.
as well.
And then, well, we have a treasurer, we have a solicitor.
Yeah. I'm just saying each, I don't, because
Tax-
I see the chief services, but I just don't see the solicitor services.
Tax collectors.
Yeah.
They might have considered that for the personnel discussion, I'm not sure, but yeah, those are contracts. Well, your collector is technically a
We have a,
FTE,
we
right?
have a full-time employee
Yeah,
that
so then-
serves as our tax collector and our clerk.
Okay,
But if you had 4 districts folding into a town,
but,
that function could go to the,
yeah,
if the property tax bills were now being, consolidated with the town's bills, right? It got sent out, we wouldn't have fire district bills anymore, we wouldn't need a tax collector at all.
and so for plowing and building maintenance repairs, Dan, I think that's another area where I would say, what more capacity does DPW need to take on those extra buildings, right? So that's,
Equipment.
what's that?
And equipment, they have to fix the fire trucks or fix the rescues, change the oil, tire goes flat, fleet maintenance. For example, the town of East Greenwich hired a full-time dedicated public service, so to speak, mechanic when we merged with them.
Okay. Speak in the mic for me.
I think I agree with everybody. Everybody's using TAPCO.
Yeah, we're using TAPCO.
Yeah, everybody's on that. The police department uses, chief, 2 guys? 2 guys, yeah, so that's
2 guys.
something outside the town, yeah, so.
Okay. When when we do put this list together with the estimates, I think there should be two columns. I think it should be a column with the estimate, and then I think there should be a column with a subtraction. So for things that would just naturally be absorbed into the town, we can show what is coming off of the other books. Obviously, right now, it's only solicitor and treasurer, but I think if anything else comes up, we think of maintenance. That's how it should be listed. Mike?
Do other districts have collectors too and clerks full-time?
So we have two full-time people. We have a full-time tax collector and a full-time clerk. Central government.
What about West?
I think they're part-time still, right?
Yeah.
We do, but it's not a full-time position, it's just kind of charged by the hour.
And Hopkins Hill's part-time, tax. clerk.
All right. So yeah, if Jillian, if you can send in your, okay. So yeah, if we can just average out the contracts, I think that'll be helpful. So, I have the list written down here if anyone needs it, but
If we can get from them what they're currently paying Vision or QDS for the tax collection, because obviously that would disappear
Hmm.
from everybody.
can everybody send that? Right.
No,
Send that
everybody just recently did an update.
QDS, whatever you're paying for that. Tax for.
Vision software for your tax collection and receivable.
Yeah, we use Vision.
If we can get what your annual cost is for that, as well as your cost for mailing out the bills, processing your bills and mailing those out.
The annual cost, I think, is pretty low, right? There's that once, every once in a while, you have to do an upgrade.
I think recently, within the last 2
Years,
years,
we had to do an upgrade.
30,000 or so.
It was like 20, yeah, it was like 20 grand or something like
20
that.
to 30.
Okay. Let's go back to, well, let's look at the fleet and equipment overall. And I think we go back to the first couple of pages here. And also some of the ensuing ones, not just the apparatus. What are some glaring aspects that stick out of this should be on our radar for if you're folding into the town's capital improvement plan, what's going to be labeled under urgent? Yes. For replacement.
Yeah, you're gonna have to develop some sort of vehicle replacement plan. So that way, each rescue gets replaced every 2 or 3 years. The engines are 10 to 15-year vehicles, but you've got to get that into a
Yeah,
rotation.
because it takes how many years to?
Right, some of them are 2
Now,
years out,
the lead time is,
2 or 3 years out now.
Yeah.
And the prices have jumped astronomically.
Yeah.
He's paying $1 million for fire trucks where, when I started, they were, $350,000, $400,000. So the prices have tripled over the last 10 years.
Would someone from the commission be amenable to getting some homework here and maybe grouping our ladders by year, grouping our engines by year, maybe? See, tell me if this doesn't make sense. See kind of rank by age our ladders, rank by age our engines, our
Well-
rescues.
the years here,
I know they're here,
Right.
yeah, but if
what you need to lay out is a 10-year plan, right?
Yeah.
From today, 10 years into the future and say, okay, here's the ladders, the engines, the rescues I have. Here's when they hit their, in the case of a rescue, 5-year mark where you would want to have it replaced. Here's where you hit, a 10 or 15-year mark for an engine or, longer for a ladder. And you would see, okay, out in 2035, you're gonna have to replace an engine, whereas you've got like 3 rescues coming up in the next 5 years, so then you can plan, $400,000 per rescue 3 years in the future.
okay. Dan, do you think you could share what the town's capital improvement Excel format looks like? So maybe, do we do that by district, or do we or do we think of it by if all were one? Like, what's the best scenario there? All right. Is there anyone here who feels like they can pull that together in a format that could plug into? Okay. All right. So, Okay. Yeah, and we can hash it out.
There's some level of subjectivity to it for
Right,
sure.
that's what I mean.
You know, like, as I said, from Anthony's perspective, our stuff's relatively new now, or will be, you know, when the engine comes in, but
On vehicle replacements, if you have, like the town I know has a good grant writer.
Yep.
Yes. So that is a good job for a grant writer.
it's
Can
huge.
get lots of apparatus through grants. Case in point, City of Central Falls, as poor as they are, going through bankruptcy, has bought 5 trucks in 6 years.
Yeah, they have more grant money they know what to do with. Yeah.
So if you have that type of person who has that capability, that's a great, saves you a lot of money, your capital budget.
Sorry, vehicles aren't as busy in the western end as they are on the eastern end. And we can extend the age of some of the stuff because it'll last longer there than it will downtown.
You mentioned something, President Lima, about PFAS and some kind of requirement for apparatus replacement.
There's a bill that's in the works on PFAS. The League of Cities and Towns is watching it very carefully, and it hasn't been introduced yet. It's just chatter, but that it would basically require complete replacement of all firefighter equipment. Yeah.
And what's on that draft bill, by what year? Have they mentioned like a required year?
I'd have to go back and look
Okay,
at
I
it.
just didn't know if you know.
Yeah, not off the top of my head.
And that is gear. That's not fire apparatus. That's gear.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it on here it says equipment for firefighters. That's the only reason why I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about the turnout gear, right? Where,
Yep,
where,
turnout
where completely removes the specific, chemical that's used in today.
Turnout gear we have now contains PFAS.
Right.
It's gonna have to be upgraded.
And do we have like an estimate of what that would cost our districts if it was to?
What are each of those outfits cost?
$3,000 to $6,000
Yeah, I was gonna say
somewhere there.
$3,000.
Yeah.
And each,
How many firefighters do we have in total in this town?
50 something.
54-ish.
Okay. It should be probably included in our budget just just in case.
I don't wanna, apply what Kevin just said, but that's another thing that grants would come in immensely for.
Yeah.
I mean, Hopkins Hills over the last couple of years have purchased gear through grants.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary to that, I'm sorry, President, the gear's only good for 10 years anyway, so we have to replace it every 10 years.
So that should be in our
regardless of
CIP.
PFAS or not.
It should be in.
Air packs have a 15-year lifespan, and they all have to be replaced that as well. So
Okay.
that should be worked into
CIP.
the grant writer's calendar or your capital improvement plan.
Okay. While we're on the subject of grants, are there any other grants we should know about that districts are relying on regularly or that you apply for that we should just take inventory of?
Really, the only grants that we get annually come from the legislature.
The legislative grants,
Yeah,
okay.
you know, yeah, the legislative grants from Senator Reptakis is really good with that stuff. The other ones are too. But we don't get a regular grant from the feds or anything to cover any operation stuff.
Okay. So the CIP, starting list, Kevin and Russ, you guys will take a stab at that, and Dan will send you guys what the towns looks like. Yep. Okay. All right. We talked about long-term is going to be with the capital investments. Anything in section 5 we need to discuss and specialized equipment, obviously for those closer to the pond that are further away from fire hydrants, I know.
So out in Western, we have tanker because we don't have fire hydrants out there. That's a little different than this side of town.
Ooh, that tanker's gonna celebrate a 30th birthday soon.
Yeah, we're kind of in the process of getting it ready to,
To retire it?
But-
Okay.
obviously it costs money, so.
Yep. Okay. We kind of covered the questions I put together. What are other questions that you have read from this?
The only thing I didn't see on here was anything about debts owed. Like how much I think they're paying for their truck right out. We've got one that's on order as to it's gonna be a debt for you in 2 years for our ambulance, for our rescue that comes.
Yeah, I think the next meeting we're doing balance sheets. Okay. So we've got 2 action items here. The maintenance estimates, those service contracts, and the CIP list. Is there anything else? When is our next meeting?
We actually don't have anything on the agenda for the next meeting. I noticed from the first agenda, it jumped February 13th to March 13th, but we did have the 27th listed as a meeting.
So the next meeting would be March 13th. Yeah. Oh, I have myself down for the 27th. Oh, okay. Yeah, no. Got it. Yeah, no. I mean, I think based on our progress, if we have both of these pieces are going to be finance heavy, and if we're talking balance, we're looking to talk balance sheets the next meeting. I think that all makes sense to go together. So, in terms of due dates, can we get the clerk and the manager's office these pieces by ideally the 21st, latest 24th, because we have to file the agenda on that Tuesday, the 25th. Dan, is whoever was able to lay this out in Excel able to do the averages for maintenance? Okay. All right.
In addition to those, if we can get, everybody that said no over their debt balance, we'll put together one schedule of the long-term debt obligations. So if you have any loans on your buildings, vehicles, if you give us that with actually, if we can get the outstanding balance, the maturity date, and the interest rates, put that all together, as well as the annual payments, their annual or monthly payments. Annual. We can put a whole schedule together of debt service.
And that would be focused on apparatus and station, but we're not talking about, when you say debt, we're not talking about the pension, stuff like that yet.
Right, strictly loans that you may have, whether it's a lease purchase agreement or a bond that's outstanding, but yet nothing with the pensions. The
I
pension
saw that it's
obligation.
listed here separately, so.
And then also you want them to send in Vision or whatever they're paying for Vision or QDS.
Right, if you could send in what you're paying for vision, as well as what you pay for the annual mailing of the processing and mailing out of the tax bills, because usually, at least my understanding is most places outsource that, just doing that internal postage meters. You're outsourcing that, the printing and the mailing.
Do you have the schedule up actually of when we're talking? When do we have up, talking about the buildings at all? Like the facilities? Do we have that on there? I was just thinking of that. Okay. All right, then that's fine. Right. So we talked about. All right, we talked about both items under business carried over. Future agenda items, we already said we're next time on the 27th, we're gonna talk about financial statements and balance sheets. Bob said if you could send in debt balance, outstanding balance, interest, maturity, and what your payments look like. And then also, the, tax mailing and collection, and what you're paying for those.
I think it's germane to the conversation, but Steve can stop me if it's not. Because one of your items is item 6, and it just says other potential hidden costs in a merger. One thing we might want to consider, because I have no idea, if there's any legal issues with any of the districts, if there's any potential for either between the union and the districts and/or with any issues. Yeah, if you guys know of them, I think we should just document them. I don't, because, I mean, it can be, 50 grand, or it could be $1 million, depending on what the issue is.
And if there are ongoing matters, we can handle that in executive session.
Absolutely, but it's part of this conversation, in my opinion.
Put on an item, close the doors and discuss that if we need to.
Okay. All right. Anything else? If that's it, I will take a motion to adjourn at 6:43 PM.
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We stand adjourned.